patience as Dr. J and Van and Charlene and everybody said, this all started coming together in September. And so we're figuring this out as we go. So I'm going to ask for your grace and hope that my prior DOL colleagues don't give me too hard of a time. We have both us here physically in person, and then we also have an online group that Shirley is helping with. And we have a co-facilitator, my friend Larry, who's going to be facilitating. And we're going to start. I'll give Larry a moment to get settled, and then we're going to go around and do some very brief introductions. We have limited time. So we have this session right now, and then we're going to have another session this afternoon, where we will continue our work after we have hopefully a very delicious lunch. And our mission today is to select four performance measures, or four measures for public services, as well as action items for those measures. You'll find we have materials at each table, which I'm also holding in my hand, that provide some context from what we're going to be working from. So we have a definition sheet, which includes four key definitions, four key terms. Pro-equity, anti-racism, universal access, and belonging. So those are key terms. A lot of us who are coming from state agencies are probably a little bit familiar with these terms because we've been doing things like the pro-equity, anti-racism themes, or PAIR. So if you hear us say PAIR, that's the acronym for pro-equity, anti-racism. Catchy term. We also have the pro-equity, anti-racism service lines worksheet or information sheet, which provides identifies 11 service lines for this payroll, including things like plans, policies, and budget, workforce equity, capacity building. So if there are terms that we're covering, they may be covered in either of the definition sheet or the service lines information. The service lines information will be helpful as we start to identify actions that agencies can take to make progress on these measures. Then we also have a measures worksheet. This is what we're going to be using as we complete our work today. Where we identify measures. I apologize, we're going to be going quick. My preference would be that we have much longer than this, but I've got to take the clock to address all this work. So we have the four measures. We'll be writing down on our worksheet. We'll be facilitating this conversation with y'all. And then that provides the framework for writing down a metric, identifying, if the measure and the metric address pro-equity or universal access. Those will be the things that we will identify with this work today. And then after we've done all this great work together, we will have a very brief report out to everybody upstairs at the end of the day, talking about what measures we've identified, metric, and I believe it's just for one measure. We will clarify that as we get moving to talk about the progress that we've made. And then this work will then be used at the statewide level to show we're making meaningful progress on improving public services and infusing pro-equity, anti-racism into that work in progress. So I'm guessing Larry has had a moment to get settled, so I'm going to let Larry introduce himself real quickly. And then also Paul.
Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good. I apologize for my tardiness. It's been a whirlwind, as you can imagine, trying to set up. I'm also the chair for the Veterans Employee Resource Group, so I'm kind of double and triple at it. So I truly apologize. We hope to get through this relatively quickly. I know it may seem clear as mud right now, but I promise you that Tony and I will do our best to get you to where we need to be in order to identify these 4 measures and these high impact action items for us to present to the governor, as Tony stated, for inclusion into action, right? We can talk about it, but let's do something about it. This is just the beginning stages of how we start working together for a more equitable Washington State for all Washingtonians. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here today, and just we're gonna get through this together.
Hello, I'm Sharice Pidcock, and I'm with the Department of Social and Health Services. I will be monitoring the online folks and making sure that they have what they need and facilitating their conversation as well. So I may come to you with questions from these folks for your input and feedback and thoughts. So thank you.
Okay, now if you all were doing some math earlier, you heard me say 4 things at the table and I only covered 3. The good news, 4th item is work that's already helped been done to get us started. It's kind of our starters. So all the way back in October, I think it was, Dr. J and Megan and the rest of the Office of Equity team sent agencies a long list of potential measures and asked agencies to review those measures and to make recommendations on their top 4 measures. And so we have a starter sheet identifying some of those areas that agencies identified, say, hey, we think this is a measure that we should consider as a state. So this is those responses. We also have printouts of the bigger network of measures that review as well. But we have started. So now it's important that conversation pieces, we have at least a very brief introduction. So I'm going to ask, we'll go from table to table. Show your name. By the way, I use he, him pronouns. There you use he, him pronouns.
She, her.
So we'll say our name. You push, feel comfortable sharing the pronouns you use, and then which organization or agency you are coming from, and your role at that agency. If you're all comfortable, we can hand the mic around so everybody can hear each other. And recognize you may want to use a little bit hand sanitizer after sharing them. So I'm going to start with.
Tracy Fuller, Department of Corrections, Business Diversity Manager.
Kenny Goble, he, him, City of Tacoma.
Nicole Johnson, she, her, Washington State Department of Agriculture. I'm the Ethnic Policy Advisor. Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Glenn. I use she, her pronouns. I am basically the DEI director for the Department of Corrections. We've all just, there's a lot of different acronyms, but yeah, basically DEI.
Good morning, Tracy Johnson, Department of Corrections. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Senior Enterprise Project Manager at DSC.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jerry Irvin. Work with the Department of Corrections and use he, his pronouns as equity and social justice consultant.
Mouse, Department of Corrections, Director of Research and Data Analytics, and I use she, her pronouns.
Good morning, I'm Matt Roberts. I use she, her pronouns, and I work with the Department of Social Health Services as the Director for the Community Services Division.
Hello, everyone. I'm Deborah Doyle. I use she, her, and I also work for the Department of Social and Health Services, smaller administration there, economic services administration, and I'm program
Smaller. I Right. know, right?
Good morning, everyone. David Reeves, he, him pronouns, come from 2 places, North Carolina, as I work for the Melbourne Research Triangle Park, and of course, through my church place as well.
Hi, I'm Denise Ross with Puget Sound Partnership. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the facilitator support system today, which is the runner. So you may see me running around.
Have to check my watch. Good morning. My name is Ian Bowie. I'm in the Department of Social Services. I work at Economic Services as well, and I am the Assistant Secretary of the UC and Programs.
Commissioner Stafford, you will do us some questions. Should we go next? As an executive assistant or Mr. Lee?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Dowd. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Director of the Office of the Family and Children's Ombuds.
Good morning. I am Dr. Joni Joseph with the Department of Social and Health Services, with the Developmental Disabilities Administration. I'm the Director of Strategic Planning and Quality Compliance.
Good morning, I'm Lisa Yanagita. I'm Chief of Staff of Department of Social and Health Services, and I use she, her pronouns.
Good morning, Gila Manessa, Secretary of DSHS, her, excuse me. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to see you all. This is exciting.
Thank you. I'm John Noski. I'm Legislative Director at DSHS.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Eric Carpenter, with DSHS, Houston State Hospital CEO.
It's great to be with us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rosalinda Turk. I'm a citizen of Cherokee Nation, and I work for Department of Health as an emergency programs specialist manager. I don't know. I can't. Something like that. Hi, I'm Suzanne Kagan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with Washington State Parks. I do program specialist stuff like permitting and that sort of thing, and doing outreach with volunteer groups and stuff. And I need to talk to you. And I have to say, this is a very impressive room.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ismaila Maidari. I go by Ish. I'm the interim director of Employment Connection University. Good morning, everyone. Employment and Security Department. I am the Labor Market and Information Director, and my name is Gustavo Alves. I use he, him pronouns. I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to be here.
Good morning, everyone. Ayana Coleman, she, her, they, them pronouns, and I am the director of the Employment and Security Department's Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion.
Hi, everyone. My name is Annette Slonim. I work with the Washington State Department of Agriculture on the regional markets team and the farm to school.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Paul Wong. I'm with the Department of Financial Institutions, and I'm the agency's tribal liaison. My pronouns are he and him.
Good morning. I am not a state agency. My name is Lucretia. I'm the Director of HR and DEI for Kitsap Regional Library.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Howard B. Perez. I work at Department of Social and Health Services, Facility Finance and Administration as Deputy Assistant Secretary.
Good morning, Brent Whittingham, Director of Equity, Performance, and Accountability with the Department of Licensing.
Good morning, Avija Wad, Medical Director, Department of Corrections, she, her.
Hey, everyone. I'm Alejandro Sanchez, Deputy Director of the Department of Licensing. I use
Morning, Rebecca Grady. I'm a research manager at the Employment Security Department and she, her pronouns.
I am Diana Sullivan with the Foundation for Homeless and Poverty Management out of Kitsap County.
Good morning, everyone. Terry Redmond, Department of Social Services, Director, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation.
Good morning. I'm Mark Rotan. He, him pronouns. I work for DSHS as the Development Disabilities Administration.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Teddy Diana Kenurende, pronouns she, her, and I'm the EDI administrator for DBA, of course, DSHS.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Langford. I'm with the
So, since I kind of blew the timeline and went through our time for, we had an icebreaker, but I owe you that time and we will conduct an icebreaker at the back end. So we get to be present with one another and just kind of get to know each other as individuals. So again, my apologies for that. As Tony stated, you'll see a document on your tables that's labeled agency organization, pre-work statistics, and possible measures. So what we're doing is identifying and, for lack of a better term, ranking and stacking how you feel those top 4 measures should be. What we'll do is we'll have everyone take an opportunity to review those measures, identify what they feel those top 4 measures that are actionable, feasible for us to put into action. And on the trail end, what we'll do is once we've identified what those measures are, what those top 4 measures are, we will then go back, review those top 4 measures and identify metrics to wage against those measures, and then action items to make sure that we're moving these metrics forward. You have a question? Okay.
It's Ian again. So my question is, for everyone that's in this room, I believe, they probably had a deadline to send to the Office of Equity what their agency's or organization's top 4 measures were from that long list, the original list. And so we did that for Department of Corrections, and we are very, of course, we understand other public services are important too. We're very Department of Corrections focused. And so I'm wondering, Larry, are we sort of like deviating from the top 4 that we originally sent in and trying to look on this sort of updated top list? And then also secondary is, is it the intention that we have a lot of DOC folks here, and so is it the intention that we all work together in our pods, or that we break up and again, we're very Department of Corrections focused, so I'm just trying to kind of figure that out.
Great question. That's part of what we've been trying to figure out as well. Larry and I were meeting at the end of the day yesterday going, okay, well, exactly what are we doing with this? So we actually have printouts of all the measures that were provided previously, and we'll share those with the group. Because also we recognize, not everybody here is coming from the state agency, so it's important to share that information as well. And there may be stuff that was identified by agencies that, again, like you said, it's important in DOC, but what we're actually doing is we're looking at like a statewide level. I told Larry, I like to talk about times when we talk about measures, because to me, when I hear a measure, I'm thinking like math, which is more of the measure piece that we'll get to. What we're talking about with measures is more of like, this is what we're going to be a priority for the state. So we may have pieces, there may be something we identify, hey, this is really important to DOC, and we all agree it's really important for the state to make this a measure that we are all working together to figure out how we work on. Because so I previously worked for DOL, and one of the things that we worked with DOC was on providing ID cards for individuals entering public jail. And so there's all this work is not going to be just one agency doing it. It's going to be stuff that we as a state are all working towards. So we may identify 2 things. We may identify that it's important to split some of these groups up a little bit and intersperse you at different tables. And then we may identify measures that are really important. Don't make the cut right now. We don't have limited resources. So that's a really great question. We're going to share the full list of measures too. So, because also say my agency, when we share our rate measures, we focus on public employment because there weren't as many things that felt relevant to our agency to comment on. So we didn't even, I don't believe we provided anything for public services. So Office of Administrative Hearings isn't present in these rankings at the moment. So we'll be having conversations around that. And we were thinking, these will be table-based conversations, because it may be challenging to have a bigger conversation. Because we've got over 30 or 40 people in the moment. So what questions do you all have? That's a lot of information.
I don't necessarily have a question, but a comment.
Yes.
To further clarify what you were saying, each agency did submit information. What you should see represented on this singular piece of paper right here is the one where the roll up has occurred. So where you will see the Department of Corrections is focusing on post-incarcerated individuals. That was one of the tasks that you guys put forward that made the list.
Yeah.
So what we're working on in the list that you identified as number one will be the list that we're all working off of that has common themes with the percentages at the top.
I know that.
Very good.
Oh, we'll print out.
Which document?
That one.
What's called?
This one, and this one.
Within the foundation?
We can get more of that, the one that we don't, that one. I need that.
Which ones are you more talking
I took a picture and I can send it to you.
You know what? I-
I-
That's my stuff.
By the way.
My broken iPhone.
Right. She's like, ah, yeah, thank you.
It's done.
Yeah. It's like whatever. I don't need it. Yeah, whatever. Have your way, right? Take what you like. Nice about it though.
All right. Sorry, I knew that.
No smashing or anything.
That's because our boss is sitting behind us. He wasn't here for me.
Gloves off.
Oh, boy.
So rest are so close. Because if you get into the main area, I mean,
So the departments were saying, as Tony was saying, departments were.
Okay, so I have stepped out of the room so that we can have a conversation without having to use chats. And so we need to take a look at that list that was provided in that picture. And from that list, collectively as an entire group, which there's 41 of us on this call, plus the about 30-ish, 40-ish people in the room, we'll need to come up with a total of 4 measures that we collectively want to work on. And so, first of all, I just want to make sure that everyone has the picture. If you can like do a thumbs up or give me some indication that you've got that, so that we can have that deeper conversation, that'd be great. I'm seeing lots of thumbs up and popping up. Thank you. And so, what my thoughts are around this is perhaps we could, I don't have the document in front of me. I'll have to pull that up. So since I just have my laptop monitor, I'm going to have a little bit of a challenge so that I can see everything, the chat, all of you, and that picture. So please scroll, put something in the chat if you're not following along, if you have a question or anything like that. But I would love to allow folks to come off of mute and let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation and a dialogue. So my first thought was, do we want to just like do a quick vote and see kind of where everybody kind of lands on which ones they think are maybe their top 4? And then from there, we could perhaps start talking about the ones that were voted on the most, but I don't know if that works for everyone. So that is just a facilitation idea to get us started. I'm happy to flex with whatever you would like. And is it Philippe?
Felipe?
Do you have a question?
I had a comment. So I studied criteria and measures in my master's of public policy program. And measures are really specific things like greenhouse gas emissions or like number of people dying from overdoses. And some of these things that are listed on here are more processes, and some of them are like changes like increase equity, address disparities, but they're not really defined. Like increase equity in housing, for example, can mean so many different things. It can mean, you know, like racial disparities, income disparities, geographic disparities, like geographic disparities are huge in our state and across the country. So that I think, yeah, I just have a question, and then folks have asked, like, are these things that we're supposed to identify across all the different agencies? So I just wanted to make that comment because I think all of these are great, but some of them fit in different places.
That's a great question and really good comments. So thank you for that. Couple of things to help the group. So these are kind of thematic topics, if you will, and we're going to pick those, and then from those, then we will actually develop what we want to measure. How would we measure that? To your point that these are really general and broad and could be very nebulous. So we'll together as a group come up with, this is how we want to measure this particular thing. And then this afternoon, the conversation will be, what action items are we going to agree to take to work towards that measure? So does that help kind of guide the conversation that we're looking to, first of all, pick one of these topics or 4 of these topics ultimately by the end of the day, and then for each one of those 4 have a specific measure, how we're going to measure it, and then what step are we going to take towards that that effort. I hope that helped and I didn't make it more confusing.
I can share my screen. I don't know if that would help, but that way, yeah, folks can see the.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to I posted the worksheet. And then let me post the example, because as facilitators, we were like, not sure what this would look like. So they gave us an example that we could share. So I just posted that. And then the other thing I want to make sure you have is the service lines. And I think there's one more. No, I think that might be it. Yeah, that's it. So those are the documents that we can work from. Can we, since we don't have a good like tool to do a vote, could we let's see, maybe let's just start at the top and work our way down, and basically you get 4 votes and I'm not going to count. I'm going to let you use the honor system. I trust all of you. So pick your top 4, and when we get to it, I will like count the number of people that voted for that, and then we can have a deeper conversation around, you know, maybe we end up with 5 things that all tied. I don't know, but we can have a broader conversation around it.
So I'm sorry, this is Alice Huber. So I don't know if we said, is this supposed to be 4 that work for all of the agencies?
Yes, including not just the folks on the call, but the folks in the room. Collectively, this whole group for public, what are we, public services, we have to come up with 4 for everyone that's participating in this room, whether it's in person or virtually. And so
so wouldn't we have to rewrite these ones that are agency specific? You know, like, you know, disparities in criminal justice. Is that really something that DSH SHCA is focusing on? You know, in the same way, you know, I'm just curious, you know, that feels like a hard reach.
It does. And so the process, the process that we are using is kind of to take these very vague statements and pick from those big, broad statements that could mean a bunch of different things depending on which agency you come from, which we're not all state agencies, even we've got folks from private sector attending. And so, you know, what as a collective group could we work on? And then we'll define what that means as we get deeper in the conversations. But for right now, our first task is to pick 4. And so I'm kind of envisioning this, that the folks on the call will come up with maybe their 4, and then I'll go back in the room and we can see what they've come up with and share what you've come up with, and then somehow we'll marry that together to come up with ultimately our final list. And I see some hands are raised, so let me see who has their hand raised. Christy.
Yeah, thank you. So hi, everyone. Christy Cruz. I'm a public member joining today. I was on the PAIR team for ESD. And I think that's why down at the very bottom, added by agencies, there's a plug there for increasing language it says language options related to websites. I think it's actually broader than that. I just wanted to make a quick plug, or maybe even ask that we could have a quick discussion about, people could share about the things that they see here that resonate with them. And I just wanted to sort of say that in looking at these categories that were identified by as top choices for agencies, many of those, the thread that I see throughout them is that who's left out are folks who are from language, marginalized languages. And so throughout many of these, if you want to increase access and opportunity and equity, you can do that. One of the strategies is through increasing your language justice measures, right? Not just language access, not just translate one document or two documents, but really doing a thorough analysis of who's getting left out because we only have our website in English, or we don't have an application for certain things in languages other than English, or if we do, it's only in Spanish, right? Like all of those considerations. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I just have to take an opportunity since we're here today to say, that for me, language justice has to make, if it's not its own standalone priority, that it's sort of driven throughout every one of the four that are chosen. So thanks for letting me share that.
Well, thank you very much. That is a great point. And something, I'll just share a little anecdote. Recently, or fairly recently, had a coworker who had a medical issue and became visually impaired for a brief period of time and slowly regained her vision. And it wasn't until she started sharing her experience using the screen readers that I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, that we recognized how much we're we're not intentionally taking efforts and therefore leaving people out without access to critical information. And so thank you for sharing that. That's something that is really, really important. Nicholas.
Hi, I suppose my question is, would we want to lean towards things that we want, or things that we think that we think are impactful, or things that we think are feasible?
That's up for the group to decide. And part of this, the other reason why this is so difficult is this is about co-creation and not telling agencies. The Office of Equity could very easily just say, okay, we're doing this and this and this, and here's how we're going to do it, and here's how we're going to measure it, and go. And that's not the approach that they want to take for many reasons. And so this work today is about co-creating. What does this look like, and how do we have a say in what we're going to measure and how we're going to measure it and what actions we're going to take. So that's why this is really difficult, is we're not being, and the Office of Equity is not being prescriptive. It's about kind of wrestling through some of this, exactly what we're talking about and the process that we want to use to get there. So I do want to say I'm suggesting things. And so Nicholas, you mentioned, can we use the prioritization tool like we do in Lean? That is a fabulous idea. So if you have ideas like that, please let me know. And if the group would like to do that, I can whip up a pick chart really quick, and we can, do the prioritization metrics that way, and kind of see where we land. So that was a great thought. And did I answer your question, Nicholas?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Erin?
Thank you, Erin Lopez. I'm virtual today because I'm sick. I thank you for the comments on language inclusion. That is great. I also wanted to note on wealth disparities, just sharing that it's also a key indicator for other disparities such as health disparities. And one of the leading factors to that is home ownership, as far as where those gaps and disparities are. And there is Commerce has completed a home ownership disparity report and recommendation. So just a little extra information on those stories.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything? There's also a group on hiring, recruitment, employment. Lee made a great point. Another thing to consider is breakout for this public services. Other breakouts focus on education. Okay. I can talk to my co-facilitators and see if that's an approach maybe we could take. And then Karen posted a link. Thank you very much for sharing that. So would you prefer me to go talk to my co-facilitators, see if we want to like pick one of those four areas like we talked about, education, criminal justice, contracting, and then public safety and law and justice, and approach it from that standpoint, or we work on just one of those things? How would the group like to move forward with kind of narrowing this down to 4? Would you like the prioritization matrix or the let's pick one of these and we focus on it from that perspective? What works for all of you?
I just want to make a quick comment that, you know, even after we choose these, we still have to define, you know, what it is that we're looking for, even like increase equity in housing or address disparities in criminal justice. Like, what are the specific indicators? And even the recruitment practices. Yeah, you know, which I guess is what's going to continue.
Oh, that's number 37, but we were.
And I guess just to add to that, do we, sorry, because other breakouts are working on other areas, do we like, do we pick things that they're also working on, or are they all going to be brought together? Just a question.
Okay, thank you for your patience. My room facilitator person came out, and so we just had a quick, okay, this is what this group is talking about. What are you doing in there? Can we like break it down by tables and everybody like picks one of the topic areas? Each table in the actual room, the physical room, they're coming up with their 4, and in about 12 minutes, we'll come back together and share our 4. And then see, oh, these are all, 5 of the tables or groups said these 2 were, the top. And so let's agree that we're going to do those. And then these others, let's have a dialogue around. So does that work for everyone? If we just kind of do a, yes, you would vote for this to be your top, one of your top 4, and I'll just keep track. Okay, I've got some thumbs up. Okay, all right. So if we start with that list, the first item is improve wage and income assistance programs efficacy. So if you would like that, could you put a 1 in the chat, and then I can keep track if in case I lose track of how many people liked that one. Okay, the next one. So remember, you get 4 votes. Oh, yes, certainly can. And it's going to be small on my screen. Will you be able to see this? Can you see that okay? Okay. Oops. Right. Okay. So, there we go. Sorry. We're, thank you for your patience and your grace as we work through this together. Okay, so I see several 1s. All right. And then healthcare justice would be number 2. So if that one would be important to you, please put that 2 in for healthcare justice, so I know, in the chat. And then the next one is increase government program satisfaction. That's one of your top. Could you put a 3 in the chat? And 4 is increase equity in housing. Five, address disparities in criminal justice. 6, increasing reporting of standard of living for post-incarcerated individuals. 7, create focus groups of assessments for BIPOCs and other communities disproportionately experiencing negative policing behaviors. Number 8, improve recruitment practices. Number 9, increase participation of digital literacy. Number 10, reduce recidivism. 11, increase assistance for home ownership. And number 12, address environmental justice. Paper, please. Yeah, thank you.
Sharice, were you gonna add the 2 at the bottom that are 13 and 14? Okay.
Thank you. So 14 was perfect. Thank you. Was address
12.
environmental justice, and so 15.
No, sorry, hey, I just want to clear, because I think you were at 12 for environmental justice.
Thank you. You are
Yeah,
correct.
I don't want to get confused with the numbers. Okay, thanks.
Yes, that is 12. And then 13 is increase the amount of education and resource opportunities through volunteering. And 14 is increase in different language options available for agency websites. So I'm going to number on my paper 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I'm going to scroll through the chat and I'll count up how many, and if someone else could also do this to make sure that I don't miss anybody's votes and I get them counted correctly, I would really appreciate it. I want to make sure that I accurately reflect what folks are saying. So 1, 2, 3, number 1. Go back. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. And number 2s. 1, 2. Oh, there's another number 2. 12, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Please, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's that 15. Another 3 makes that 8. 4 makes that 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Makes that 6. 3 makes that 9. 5 makes that 7. 6, 1. 7, 1, 2. 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 1. 1, 2, 3. No more 8s makes it 11. 1, 2 more 9s make that a 3. And then another 9 makes it 4. 1, 12. 1, 2. 5 makes that 8. 12 makes that 3. 8 makes that 12. 14, 1, 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then 8 makes that 13. Okay, so if I have done the math correctly, and that's what I'm hoping somebody else can double check. Looks like number 4 had 16 votes, which would be increased equity in housing. That was the most. And then we had a tie at 13, which is number 8. 8. So improve recruitment process. And number 14, which, oh, sorry. Trying to scroll and it's not scrolling, it's zooming. Number 14 is increase different language options available for agency websites. So that is, those would be tied for 13 votes. And then the next, our fourth one would be number 2 at 12 votes, and that's healthcare justice. So now should we open this up for discussion? Is everybody okay with having those be the top 4 that we present in 2 minutes? Or is there something that you'd like to adjust or change or maybe advocate for? Christy?
I don't know if you saw it, you were busy counting. That was a very difficult task, so thank you for doing that. I wrote a note and I don't know how others feel, but number 14 is just so very limited that I just proposed reframing it as, sorry, I don't want to.
I'm gonna mute so you can have your discussion. I will be right back.
Okay. As building language justice across state government. And you know, that might change, we can change the terminology, but moving it away from just websites and stuff. So I don't know how people feel about that. Increasing language justice or language assistance services across state government. I mean, that might be more plain language because not everyone knows what language justice means. So maybe increasing language assistance services across state government.
Okay.
I think that makes a lot of sense, especially because websites are not the only or the best means of communication with linguistically isolated communities.
So I got some additional information from my co-facilitators, and what the tables are going to do is debrief their top 4, just like these were our top 4 in order, and then share their top item and like why that one is important, and not just maybe from one person, but collectively, you know, this is kind of how we feel about it. So with this new information, our top 4 are the ones that we just mentioned. Our top is number 4, which would be increase equity in housing. So do we want to collectively kind of talk about that and why that one kind of bubbled up to the top? We've got a hand raised. Christy, is that a new hand raised or is that an old one? Sorry.
Old, sorry.
Oh, no problem. No problem. So can we articulate why that one kind of rose up to the top for folks? Housing availability and affordability is key to many other opportunities, education, jobs, healthcare. Okay. So would someone like to share to the group? If no one volunteers, I can do that. And I would love for you all to have your voice heard in the room and not just have it be a conduit through me. So if someone would be willing to to do that. Erin, would you be willing to do that, or do you have a question?
Well, I had a question. Felipe had asked a question about agencies working on other priorities. My assumption is it accurate that all agencies will still run their pair priorities, which would be a yes to that question?
I believe so.
Okay.
So the agencies that your individual pair plans, that's your action plan that you're moving forward with. This is, this conversation is about collectively at a state level, what are we going to measure and how are we going to measure it, and getting, the agencies and the folks here in the state, that aren't state agencies to agree that is the thing that we should measure. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like everyone has to 100% agree. And yet we all need to be able to say, I support that. Yes, you know, maybe I'm just gonna make something up as an example. Maybe reduce recidivism doesn't apply to my agency. And so I would support what the other agencies, you know, that rose to the top. And so I would support this action and this measure, knowing that I'm going to continue with my pair plan, and that particular action doesn't maybe apply to my agency because I don't work with incarcerated individuals or individuals who are coming out of incarceration. So I hope that helped. Yes, those definitely will continue. This is as a state, how are we going to measure this? Again, the Office of Equity could very easily say, this is how we're going to measure it. I'll be right there. Yeah. And is opting not to dictate how that gets done. So we do need to go back in the room now and prepare to share and hear what others are saying. Would someone like to, Christy, you'd like to report on all of the priorities? The activity that my co-facilitators are doing is we'll say these are our top 4, and this is the one that rose to the top, and here's kind of collectively why. So that's the format that they're going to use, and because of timing, and we have to get this report out collectively done and kind of figure everything out collectively as one bigger unit room. We have 10 minutes before the lunch break to do this. And so, Philippe, do you have something you'd like to share?
Yeah, and it's Felipe. So I have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. These were all like super close in the votes, but if we're going to focus on the housing equity, you know, you are asking for us to report on why. I would love to hear from folks, especially folks who are in agencies or, you know, organizations where they work on that, why they think that this is an important priority so that we can share that with the rest of the group.
Okay. Okay, great. Would someone like to volunteer to share as I go back into the other room?
I can if you want. I was hesitant because I'm coughing, but if there aren't other volunteers, I'm happy to do it.
Mark, are you volunteering?
Am I answering Felipe's question or reporting back to the group? I think I was raising my hand to respond to Felipe's question.
Okay. And then we need to get back into the room. Okay. So go ahead and respond.
So I work for the Traffic Safety Commission, and so while housing may seem to be a little bit removed from what we focus on, which is preventing fatal crashes, we recognize that proximity to work, school, other places people need to go is important, and if people can live closer to school and work, then that helps alleviate the need for so if people have more ways to get there, they can use transit, they can walk safely, they can bike safely, all those things. But When housing is unaffordable, they tend to live much farther from the places they need to go, and there lack safe routes to get there. So that's one way I see that housing equity goal kind of tying into our much more specific mission.
So you've got some kudos that's an excellent example. And so Mark, would you be willing to share the agency's perspective? I can maybe read if the group would like, I can read these were our top 4, and then you could maybe explain kind of why and provide that as an example.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna go back in the room now.
Because without that, really, you cannot be able to access healthcare or equity in housing, because if you fill out all these forms, you're gonna need to navigate maybe Google Staff app to see, are you really doing the right thing, right? Or if, let's say, improving wages and income. So you're gonna have to find out, if I'm a social worker, what is the rate of other social workers being paid, right? So in order to do that, you need statistics, so you need data, and how you do that is you need digital access to access the internet and know all these. And also digital access, we talked about in rural areas where people don't have the bandwidth and they cannot access internet. Even if you need GPS, will get lost. And someone said, I had to print out the directions and it felt so weird, but looking at that as a foundation is really critical in the four that we chose. But also, because I'm from DSHS, as you guys said, we have a house, we have a house, but we look at the foundation to look at our technology and improve our technology in order to have maybe hiring practices improved, retaining workers. Like most of us are now working from home. There is no way I would work from home if I didn't have access to internet, to the computer, and also like just knowing how to use it as well. Another amendment we wanted to make is that Siri, and I'm sorry I'm taking a lot of time, but it was so important, that where it says BIPOC, to not use that, it may be so because we are from listening to Dr. J saying about belonging. Literacy is not just for people of color that they don't know what they are doing with that digital literacy. So we want that really amended and look at low income communities, expand that to that, not only BIPOC people, but low income communities, which may even include white people in there. So just making sure that we are really including everybody and taking in mind what we just listened to this morning about belonging. So if I missed anything, please, my group, you can come and say something.
Group number 3. Who's your speaker?
Hey everyone, I think the benefit of being towards the end is we don't have to, do first one great content and we won't have to keep talking about the same ones, but our group did a nice little round robin. Everyone got to have their voices heard and cast the vote, and we honored the vote. So our top 4: improve wage and income assistance program efficiency, improve recruitment practices, increase equity in housing and healthcare justice. We actually tied on the top 2, and then we had a nice robust discussion to honor the voices as to why we chose those top 2. Wage and income assistance, I think not to belabor what some have said, and I know it's on some other sheets too, these past couple of years, I think some of our programs have been on the front lines, really helping people through the tough economic times, and we really want to honor addressing a lot of the inequities that we saw as a state and keeping that our goal moving forward. But the other one that I haven't heard yet, I don't think got on the board, that was one of our top two, was improved recruitment practices. We had, again, a nice discussion about this. I can't speak for all of the Pro Equity Anti-Racism plans out there, but several of our organizations really focused on internal work. And of course, you know, the conversation around that for us is if we really want to serve the people of the state in the way that they deserve to be served, we have to make sure that those people are working with us, and that means being our coworkers and our colleagues in our buildings and in our organizations. So bring them in, and maybe the two kind of go together on one point, right? Like focusing on wage and income, and also having them be our coworkers and not just see them as the other and the external. So anyway, that was a lot of the conversations that we had in our time. Bruce, does that feel comfortable? All right, awesome. Thank you.
And your group three, okay, so we have two more groups. We have group number 4, and then we have our online group. So we're gonna try and go quick, so that way lunch is still there when we're all done. So group number 4, and then the good news is I'm not seeing a lot of overlap.
Much, no. So we had a really excellent, awesome conversation, very organic, didn't do any voting, so. But we did agree. So the top 4 things that we came up with were healthcare justice, increasing government programs. We changed it from satisfaction to efficacy and accessibility. Felt like that was a little bit more what we were really shooting for. Addressing disparities in the criminal justice system and environmental justice. And these are really big things. So we also said some of these will cover other things. So I think we're going to shoot it gently. So for instance, when we talked about and what became our number 1 is increasing government program accessibility and efficacy, we think is also a place where digital equity and literacy can play as a metric, goal, action item within. And there's a couple of other items that were on that list that we think might also come up in that area. Equity in housing, equity in home ownership, some of those other places could also be part of this. We also wanted to say that addressing the disparities in the criminal justice system, again, there are other items that could come up in here, but this is a sort of foundational piece that we really need to think about because it does sort of play into people's ability to feel like they can. It was a really awesome conversation around environmental justice and healthcare justice, in which we said those are really big, right? Those are really big, really aspirational. There are a lot that needs to go into that. And while we can get to some of the needs around both of these through increasing the government program efficacy and access, we also have some of the work that needs to be done in those 2 other areas within that as well. So this ended up being our number 1.
Okay, and then our last group is here with us digitally and in spirits, but not physically.
So again, for those of you, I'm Teresa Pitcock and representing the virtual folks. And Mark will be explaining from the agency's perspective why they came up with their top choice. So we were able to get through voting on all of them to come up with our top 4, and then a very quick conversation about our number 1 so that we could explain it to all of you. So our top choice was increase equity in housing. And then we had a tie for second with improve recruitment practices and increase different language options available for agency websites. And there was some conversation about either rewording that or expanding that so that it wasn't just for websites, but other documents and other means of communication. And then our 4th option was healthcare justice. And so Mark, would you like to take yourself off speaker and share with the group from the agency's perspective why increased equity in housing was selected?
Sure. So a couple things. One, I think we landed on kind of broad cross-cutting goals that can apply to many different agencies. Housing, is a basic need, and it's a key to other opportunities being in close proximity to employment, to education, to services, to grocery stores, all those kinds of things. And I'm from the Traffic Safety Commission. So from my perspective, even though we don't work directly on housing issues, we recognize that having accessible, affordable housing that's in closer proximity to where people want to go, including their jobs, their kids' schools, shopping, healthcare, means that they have more options to get there safely. They can walk, they can bike, they can use transit, and they have the facilities to get there safely. But if their housing options are limited and they're far away from those things, and there are not sidewalks and crosswalks and bike lanes that are protected, that they are more at risk of being involved in traffic crashes or being seriously injured or killed in those crashes. So that's how I saw housing connecting to our work.
So good news is at least in terms of in the room, we didn't end up with everybody picking 10 number one. So when we come back at 1 o'clock, we're going to continue the conversation. Usually your top item for your team is what we're going to be developing in these metrics and action items. Action items mean what will agencies in the state do to make progress on this measure. So thank you, everybody. Take a moment, go get lunch, eat, come back. If you have any questions or concerns or anything you need to talk about with any of the listeners, just let us know. And 1 p.m.
Thank you all very much for participating virtually, and we will join you as soon as we get back. If I'm not on the call right away, it means we have not gotten started, and we'll be with you as soon as we're ready to get going. Thank you.
I'll take your downtime. I will.
Yeah, I feel like the last couple of things I've done like this, have been like all levels of like understanding what you guys know. And oh wait, we don't have to like
Right.
When you go upstairs into the main ballroom, they're on the tables as you walk in, and there's a book. Yep. Yeah. So